Thank you very much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kat Calvert. I'm the Workstream Lead Officer for Wellbeing for Learning. Today we are working on, we're going to be presenting on planning and evaluating the impact of youth work and schools partnerships. We're joined by Jill Gracie from YouthLink Scotland, John Galt from Education Scotland, and we are joined by three of our partnerships today. So last year we we ran an inquiry on youth work and schools partnerships, and we're joined by Kelly Auld and Catherine King from the Ross Hall Partnership, by Kimberly Hunter and Lindsay Potter from the Barrhead Partnership, and Brian McLeod from the Stonelaw Partnership. So covering South Lanarkshire, Glasgow City Council and East Renfrewshire Council today. I'm going to hand over. We'll also be joined by James Bonus, who is our Data and Evaluation Officer in the West Partnership, and he also works for Renfrewshire Council. He has been developing some work on a dashboard, which he's going to go through with us later in the session. We hope to be finished by 5 o'clock, so we're going to move swiftly on, and I'm going to pass over to Jill and John.
Thanks, Kat, and thanks for joining today. And I think we're also joined by Emma Ball from the East Renfrewshire Partnership as well. So thanks for being on the call as well, Emma. I'm just going to share a very few slides, which I'm hoping you can see now. Kat, is that working okay?
Yes, perfect.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is the second of 3 sessions. We had one earlier in May about the establishment of effective partnerships, and this one is the second in that series, which, as Kat said, is looking particularly at planning and evaluating partnership working between youth work and schools. And it's based around insights that were gathered through a collaborative inquiry last year that involved all of these youth work and schools partnerships. And we have 3 of those, as Kat said, here today, which is brilliant. So in terms of the session, I'm going to do a really brief introduction to the National Youth Work Outcomes and Skills Framework, which was the basis for the evaluation that we used through the collaborative inquiry. Kelly and Catherine are going to give some reflections on their experience of being part of that evaluation, and then Barrhead and Brian from the South Lanarkshire Pathfinder programme, who worked with Stonelaw High School through the collaborative inquiry, are going to share some kind of practical applications of the way they're actually doing evaluation in schools at the moment, the evaluation of their partnership work. And then James is going to talk a bit about what we're doing as a next step in that evaluation in phase 2 of the collaborative inquiry. So just to kind of give some context to the evaluation work, what we used as scaffolding for the evaluation and collaborative inquiry, the youth work skills framework, which is now an integrated framework and called the Outcomes and Skills Framework, which has recently been launched. But that core bit around skills was what we used through the inquiry process. And really what this visual tries to show is young people in the centre, those 11 core skills that we know that youth work is really good at developing young people around, and then those as kind of almost the building blocks towards those wider outcomes, which are then sitting in the context of the 4 capacities of the Curriculum for Excellence and GIRFIC and UNCRC. But really importantly, our outcomes are delivered through a youth work approach, which has its own unique way of doing things. So for people that are not familiar, these are the 7 overarching youth work outcomes. You see them there. And really these try to describe the key things that young people will develop through their relationship, through their progression in youth work. And then alongside of those, we have a set of those 11 skills, each of which are described with a set of associated indicators, and they're all expressed as I can statements, as you can see. This doesn't work brilliantly as a slide, but you can see, I think, the gist of that there. And what we say to youth workers is you can adapt the indicators to fit your programme and your evaluation. And the link to the full framework is available on the YouthLink Scotland website. So you can see there how these things then start to fit together. So you have the overarching, this is just as an example, you have the overarching outcome there of young people building their health and well-being, a set of skills that would connect closely with that. These are not prescribed. Youth workers can choose the ones that fit best in their context, and the same with the indicators. And what we can recommend in terms of the evaluation is that you choose a relatively small number of indicators to try to measure, and not to try to measure everything. So that's, I guess that's the kind of, it's hopefully a bit of helpful context in terms of the way that the evaluation process was run through the collaborative inquiry. But I'm going to pass over now to John and Kelly and Catherine, who are going to talk a bit about their experience of that evaluation through the inquiry process.
Thanks, Jill, and hi everybody. Yeah, so as Jill said, we've got Kelly, who's the youth worker based in Ross Hall Academy in the south side of Glasgow, works for Glasgow Life, and we've got Catherine as well from the school, and we're just going to hear a little about their reflections on you know, the shared evaluation that they went through as part of the collaborative inquiry. So hi guys, thanks for coming. Maybe just start, if you could both give your reflections on what it was you wanted to find out together when you took part in the collaborative inquiry.
I suppose a bit for us was, obviously we wanted to find out what young people's thoughts were in terms of having a youth work focus in school and the opportunities that came from that. We wanted to find out a bit more about what the impact was on the young people that we were working with, but we also were keen to find out about what other partnerships were doing and how that was managed by the school or by education or by the local authority as such, and how they were funded and different things like that.
Thanks, Kelly. What about yourself, Catherine?
Yeah, I think everything that Kelly said, but also we're really interested initially to get a bit of insight into what staff and parents thought about youth work, what they were aware of with Kelly's role, with our involvement, our partnership together. So we kind of did that via surveys to figure out where we were as a school, and it was a really good sort of a good tool for us to use to make improvements going forward. So I thought it was really beneficial of how useful the children thought of youth work, and for Kelly, and how essential she was to us in the school. Parents as well, probably there was two sides to it. There was parents that know Kelly very well, and there's parents have no idea who Kelly is. And I think for various needs of our young people, but I think if you speak to young people, the need is so wide, from young people that are sort of disengaged to young people with mental health issues that can stop them going to class, that I think if you consider all of these needs, everyone has a requirement for youth work input in our school particularly. And what we did find out from our survey was probably a need to involve staff more, because staff are really interested in the role of youth work, but it's probably about how to utilise staff better and to build more of a partnership on that, and that's what we're working on at the moment.
Thanks for that. So you mentioned the survey there, Catherine, but in that kind of evaluation process for both of you, what data did you want to gather overall, and how did you go about it? And I know we were kind of encouraging you not necessarily to go out and get loads of completely new data, but to kind of look at what you already had. But what kind of things were you looking to gather, and how did you go about it?
I think there was sort of two sides. Kelly had her data gathering with the young people and really hearing from them and their voice, and then my role was really via sort of parent council and for staff, and sort of finding out what they were aware about youth work and their involvement in our school and what they would like to do going forward. And one of the big things from staff has been they want to be involved more in the process and bringing youth work into their departments as well, and how that can contribute to their curriculum, because I think if we all consider the developments in the curriculum going forward at the moment, youth work have a really big role to play there. There's excellent qualifications out there that Kelly and other youth work partnerships can deliver that as a school can benefit from, that our staff do not have the time probably to deliver, but would really benefit all different stages of young people.
What about yourself?
Sorry,
Kelly?
I actually cut off a wee bit there at the beginning. I froze, so I'm sorry if I missed out on a question that was being asked.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We were just talking, I suppose, about the kind of data from your side that you gathered and how you went about doing it. And I suppose it'd be interesting, obviously Jill's introduced us to the skills and outcome framework there. It'd be interesting to know to what extent that was a useful tool for you.
For me, in terms of the feedback from young people, it's what I used for them to actually probably realise the impact that it has made on them, and to realise what they've achieved over the piece. And it was a really useful tool actually, and it's something that we'll use going forward when it comes to young people, because they quite often don't quite understand what a difference it's making to them, and they may be it's not part of their regular curriculum, you know, their regular subjects. So if they're doing something through the youth work programme or something in their local community through CLD, they don't always quite understand what they're achieving throughout it. So we did use the framework when working with young people to come back with the feedback from them.
Thanks for that. And you've both started to answer this question, but I suppose, you know, what did the shared evaluation process tell you? So I think, Catherine, you've already started to say about, you know, that staff maybe wanting to be more involved. Kelly, you're talking about young people maybe recognising the progress they've made. But were there other points from that shared evaluation that you'd want to mention?
Yeah, I think for me, it was really highlighting how, like I said before, the benefit that young people have from Kelly and from the partners that Kelly can seek out for us, and the partnership she's built and the programmes that run and the benefit to the young people. So it's very, very heavy on the benefit to the young people at the moment. And then, like I said, what we want to build on is the benefit to our staff and to our parents and our wider community. And that's what we've probably discussed at SLT level, and the importance of putting that onto our own improvement plan and making sure it's a whole school priority for next session. And it's not just myself and Kelly that are working on this. And being part of the inquiry's been a real benefit to us for that way, for sort of increasing the profile of youth work in our school and the importance of it. And also, if in these times where unfortunately cuts are happening left, right and centre, to really sit and explain the importance of having youth work as part of our long-standing partnership in our school has been really, really important and valuable, and to put it onto a whole school improvement plan as a whole school priority that we're actually talking about as soon as tomorrow for next session is something that we've probably really taken out of the whole self-evaluation process.
Fantastic, thank you. Kelly, what about yourself?
For me, in terms of the young people, it's been an advantage to be able to see how it's impacted their journey throughout school. So I'm nearly just coming up on 4 years in total. So for some young people, I've been working with them since I've been in S1. And in many ways, what came out of it was that enabled the young people to stay in school. Some of them are coming from really quite difficult backgrounds. So having that input within their school curriculum allowed them to stay in school, and they'll quite openly say to you, I probably wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't be coming to school, or I wouldn't be participating. Or because I took part in that programme in S1, 2, 3, I'm now able to look towards doing my exams, and it's making that longer term impact on young people that was really evident.
Fantastic. And I think both of you, certainly, I think, Catherine, you've kind of answered my final question a bit, which is, you know, what's the impact been on how you plan together? And it's great to hear that kind of embedding into the way the school improvement plan's been put together. But maybe just as a final question for both of you, just your reflections on how it was going through a kind of shared evaluation process, looking at from both the youth work and the school side.
think it really helped us realise what strengths we have in the partnership, but also gave us that opportunity to start to look at what areas there were for improvement. And we realise that it's not perfect and there's always room for us to make these changes. That, for instance, we've discussed how we are able to track progress of young people. So currently I track the progress of young people, but that's not something that's within the traditional education tracking system. So we're looking at ways that we can do that so that young people are still getting the recognition for what they've achieved throughout their whole time at school. So it's given us the opportunity to start to look at ways that we can make those changes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's similar to me, because we had this discussion just a few weeks ago just about how Kelly does, and I'm sure every youth worker in every school that has that as a benefit, go through so many different certificates, programs and everything with young people, but actually, does that match up with their school attainment, and is that reflected on their attainment? Is it reflected on their achievement profile as they move through the school? And I mean, I'd be happy to hear about schools that do that really effectively. I'd say, again, that's something that we want to look at going forward, to make sure that that achievement is tracked along with their attainment going through school. And again, particularly with the reform and the importance that's been put on for achievement as we go through the assessment model. So I think just finding out gaps that you have has been really useful, but also celebrating the success that you've got. And finally, probably one real positive that's come out of being part of the inquiry for me, and I'm sure for Kelly, is just meeting other authorities and other schools that are developing youth work as well, and the different ideas and the different sort of skills that we can pick up and learn, and just kind of network with each other and just build on our successes together and help each other going forward.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that as well. It's also good to see how other local authorities and how they work, how they work in partnership. Some of them work completely different from the way they do, but at the end of the day, we're all aiming for the same thing. We're all aiming for, to support the young people. So it's good to see how things work in other local authorities.
Fantastic. Listen, thanks both for your reflections there. That was really helpful. I know one of the things you did, you mentioned it was sort of gather impact statements from some of the young people, and what are you going to just give us an example of one of those?
Yeah, I've got one here. So that's a young person who has left school now, but I worked with for a period of time. So her feedback, I'll read it verbatim because it is her words. I think a youth worker's job is different to a teacher's job. A teacher's there to guide you through education, but a youth worker, they protect you. They're there for you more, whereas a teacher can only do certain things. They would tell you to just go and speak to your pastoral care teacher. A youth worker can actually sit down with you and support you, and they have the time for you. I enjoyed having a youth worker in school because I just feel like they always helped me. They were always there when I needed them, and they were always there to support me with my work. They always told me that I can do my best. I think for me, it was really good having youth work support in my school because I felt like I wasn't being supported anywhere else. I think one day I just came into the youth workers' room. I think I broke down and I started talking to them about how I was feeling, and I felt so supported. I felt as if they were really there for me. I think that if I had the access to support that the youth worker gave me in my earlier stages in school, then I would probably still be at school right now. And the support I needed was for someone to be there for me when I was feeling down, and also just working with me in a different room instead of a big massive classroom. I would like to tell people the experience of youth work has helped me get through school. It helped me get the qualifications I needed, and it has also helped me when I was dealing with my depression. I developed by being more positive, and also my confidence changed. When I was speaking to the youth worker, I felt that I had more confidence and I could say what I wanted to say. I never felt awkward to say it, it just felt really comfortable. Also, my communication, I felt like I talked more around you, and I feel like it was amazing that I was able to do that. I feel like the experience I had with youth work has made me realise that you don't need to be afraid to ask for the support. You don't need to be afraid of needing support. It's really helped me now I'm in college and I'm able to speak about how I'm feeling. If I was at school and I didn't have that sort of support that you gave me, then I don't think I would ever have been able to speak about my feelings. Getting my qualifications was the best thing that ever happened. I thought I was not going to go anywhere in life, But then when I met you, you made me realise that there is a way out and you don't need to feel like this forever. It felt like a fresh start.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's a powerful statement, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how I managed to read that without crying.
Well done. Well done. And thanks, Kelly and Catherine, again for sharing your reflections there. Well, it's quite hard to move on from a powerful statement like that, isn't it? But what we also did was we gathered together some of the shorter feedback that we had from young people across the different partnerships that were involved, although it was a lot of the young people from Ross Hall that voiced them in a short video. So we're just going to play that for you now. It's about 3 minutes long, and I'll just cue it up. In 2022, 7 youth work and school partnerships from across the West region took part in a collaborative inquiry to share learning about good practice and better understand the collective impact of their work with nearly 1,200 young people.
The National Youth Work Outcome and Skills Framework highlights the skills that young people can expect to develop through taking part in youth work in Scotland. Each Youth Work and Schools partnership gathered evidence of change in relation to these skills in the young people who took part. Here's what young people told us.
Youth workers get a chance to take us on a different learning journey with more of a focus on different skills.
My confidence changed when I was speaking to my youth worker. I felt like I could say what I wanted to say.
Working with the youth workers has made me believe in myself more.
I've been able to go and learn things outside school. I've been able to try new things and I am more confident to do these things now.
I'm more confident to expand my knowledge.
I feel as if I have grown as a person.
I now feel I can do anything I set my mind to.
I developed by being more positive.
I got comfortable with making mistakes, asking questions and saying how I feel.
Now when I get put down, I can get back up.
I'm expressing my thoughts and feelings now.
It made me realise you don't need to be afraid to ask for the support and you don't need to be afraid of needing the support.
It's helped me to calm down, think about how other people are feeling.
I've learned to respect people, listen to them and have more patience. I now know how to consider other people's feelings.
It helps me get on with teachers better because I would be more likely to ask for help as opposed to getting angry about not understanding.
My biggest achievement through youth work has been learning how to communicate and interact in a healthy way.
I'm more confident speaking to people now.
I can now speak out in the group in class.
It's helped me open up to people. I would never have spoken to other adults before, now I can.
I'm starting to tell teachers when I don't understand something.
Now as things get out of control, I can work them out bit by bit.
I've started to think about everything in that future-focused way now.
I can assess risks and make safer choices. The youth work group has helped me to make better decisions and I can think through the outcomes better. This experience helped me work in a group, understand that I can work with people when I give them a chance.
I learned I can work out things on my own and in a team.
My life would have gone in a different direction without this support. My youth work helped me get my life on track, open doors that I didn't think would open.
Okay. Over to you, Jill.
Thanks, John. So we're really lucky. We've got 2 partnerships here today are going to talk about their evaluation process as it works currently on the ground. So this is kind of in a way building on the collaborative inquiry process, but it's also work that they've been doing that fits their context. So I'm going to ask Barrhead High School youth work partners to go first on this. Kim, do you want to share your own slides or do you want me to share yours?
If you don't mind sharing them, that would be. In fact, there's not that many, so we can.
No worries.
Just let you know when
to
move on. Thank you.
Is that okay now? That's showing up.
Perfect.
Brilliant. I think that's your first one, isn't it?
Yep.
Brilliant.
Sorry, the lead on community learning development within East Devonshire Council, and I'm just going to talk a wee bit about our previous approach to kind of planning and evaluation, and kind of what we've got in place just now. Lindsay will show you some of the things we've developed, and then Kim will talk probably about some of the impact around what we've got in place. So we've got a long-term relationship with Barrhead High School, and we've got over 20 years worth of partnership working under our belt, which is really positive in itself. However, I would say prior to COVID, we were in the school delivering the same programmes each year. And although those were positive and had impact on young people and communities, we were doing what we always did because we always did it. And we agreed those things on a yearly basis, and there wasn't a lot of flexibility around how that youth work time was then spent in schools, and it tended to be kind of one member of staff per school. And we just kind of continued with the status quo. That's what we did because that's what we knew. And if you can move on this my slide, Jill, please. The kind of what we have in place now is much more strategic and based on need of both ourselves and youth work, but also in terms of the school. Prior to COVID, but definitely during COVID, and with the help of the collaborative inquiry, we've definitely strengthened our approach to planning and evaluation. We have much more regular planning and review meetings in place, and our conversations are based on the needs of young people. And we have a much better kind of joint understanding of those needs of individuals and how we can collectively respond to those. We've developed a new template for recording our joint work, which Lindsay will talk you through. But I think what we now have in place allows us to be much more responsive to need. So not just committing 6 hours a week or however many hours a week to the full year's worth of programme of support. We're much more flexible and able to respond to the needs as and when they're coming up. So for example, we in the community have been seeing young people displaying risk-taking behaviour and social behaviour, and we were able to work with the school to target these young people and provide a kind of safer choices programme in the school, but also has impact on the community. So yeah, we very much now plan kind of based on needs, but we also work out the best member of staff who's able to commit to that piece of work. So as I said earlier, it was one member of staff per school. However, now we're really working in a way where if there's a need that our youth worker who we have identified for that year can't respond, that we're able to put someone else in place. For example, we were able to bring in a member of staff with specific skills in Duke of Edinburgh and kind of outdoor learning to respond to a group of young people's needs, and that's something that's been further embedded in the school as we've moved forward. Lindsay will now take you through our document.
Hi folks, thank you for inviting us along this evening. I would just like to say that when we were asked to take her to get involved in this project, you know, sometimes you look at it and you think, oh no, more work to do, but actually it's been very good for us in terms of reflecting of where we're at, because sometimes you think, yeah, we've got a wee system going here and we think that it's working well, but then you take that step back and you start to look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And just as my colleagues who were on previously from the last school talking about, you know, this opportunity to share practice with colleagues has actually been really, really good. So you, Kat, I think it was yourself who talked about, or sorry, Kat, who talked about the skills framework. I now use this, or we now use this when we're doing our planning, and I've found it really useful because it gives us something to anchor ourselves to when you're considering the programs that you're running and whether they're actually the right programs. if I could ask you to move on to the next slide. So one of the things that we have been doing together was to look at how we plan. Now, we've always had a planning document, and it probably looked very similar to what you're using already in schools, just using the same kind of format as the schools school improvement plan. But we've developed our own now. And this one, we've brought in the skills framework for youth work, but we've also brought in the background factors that might affect, you know, the cohorts that we're dealing with. We are much more outcome focused, I would say, when we're trying to decide on the best programmes, and we use the background information there to help us ensure that we're actually meeting the needs of the young people. So you can see here, for example, we've got how many are SIMD, how many are free school meal, language. This is useful not just for us, but also for whoever is delivering the programme, because it might not necessarily be Kim or Emma who are delivering it. We might get together, Kim and Emma and I, and we plan out what we think the needs of our group are and the route that we're going to take. But it could be, as Emma had said, another youth worker who's coming in to deliver. So if I give them this already gives them a broad overview of the cohort that they're dealing with, and taking into account those considerations, such as, you know, if it's free school meal, are there implications for that? And that's helping us to close the attainment gap as well. And what it's really useful for right now is I'm in the middle of writing up standards and quality with my colleagues here. So I can dip into this, and already I've got all those stats sitting there that I can pull that off and help me with my reporting. So it's actually, I'd say that now, we're much more strategic in how we are managing developing those programs for young people, because you might have in your head, we're going to deliver this with this cohort, but when you start to break it all down and then you're looking at the schools that's been developed, you might think, actually, that's not really meeting the needs of this particular group. We have to take a step back and rethink, because it has to be outcome focused. So it's a useful planning tool for us, but it's continually under review. And I think Kim is now going to speak to you a little bit about how we've taken this forward and how we're evaluating.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Sorry, next slide.
The next slide. Yeah, so I'm just going to talk you through some of the main points which we have taken from participating in the inquiry. So our approach now being very much changing as the needs change for us. So if, for example, as Emma said, we've got young people that we are not currently working with, that there's an issue for us in the community, then, you know, we've been able to come to the school, come to Lindsay, and be able to put forward a proposal of work, and they're very much supportive of that. And like we've said before, if it's not myself that's able to fulfil that, then we bring in other staff members that have got that skill set and the relationship with the young people that they'd be able to do that. Around communication as well, is obviously, it helps because we've worked together for quite a long time now. So the communication is solid between us, whether it's emails or that we are having, you know, structured planning meetings or through our joint support team inputs. It's something that is continuous all throughout the year, and it's not just at the beginning of the year as maybe what we did in the past. And with the school and the CLD staff members, we are sharing sensitive, appropriate information on a regular basis, and that information is then appropriately passed on to staff that are going to be meeting with and working with these young people, not just myself. And this is something that the schools see a huge value in as well, as we are passing information to our partners within the school to help them, because obviously quite a lot of the time our young people may present differently in school as what they do in the community. Sort of moving forward in terms of looking at our evaluations, is we're going to be sharing our plans, so the PEF plan within the school and our CLD plan, and this really then kind of helps us at a more strategic level and understanding what is sort of driving our needs as well as the needs of our young people. And actually kind of bringing both our evaluations together through the inquiry, this has really helped us see what kind of things it is that we're already valuing, but how can we then bring this together? And it's a good way for us to obviously to showcase the work that we're doing. Anything else that you just want to add, Lindsay or Emma?
No, I think the only thing I would say is about the joint planning there and using all the information that we have is really important. It's really key because it means that we're looking at that national and the local picture and we're taking everything into account. But more importantly, we're getting it right for our young people.
Thanks, Lindsay. That's really helpful, and I'd encourage people to, if you've got questions through these presentations, maybe pop them in the chat, and we'll try and pick any questions that have popped up over the course of what's happened so far before we move on to the final section of the session this afternoon. But for now, I'm going to ask Brian McLeod, who is part of the youth work team in South Lanarkshire and runs the Pathfinder programme, and he was involved in the inquiry at Stonelaw High School, to share a bit about their slightly different approach to evaluation. Brian, I'm going to share your slides, but you can kick off and I'll get organised.
Okay. Probably should start off by saying that our programmes, the Pathfinders programme, is for a specific group of young people. So we were tasked with working with kids who are on the edge of care. So it's more about prevention, to try and prevent them going further down into the social work referrals or children's hearing referrals. So what we wanted to set up was a system that operated live during the whole process. We didn't want a system that reflected on 6 months later or a year later. So we started off the system, we wanted the young person to be at the centre of that. If they've disengaged or they've got trauma in their background, we wanted to make sure that they were involved in the whole process, so they bought into the system. We wanted to focus on the quality. We wanted to actually recognise what the journey was, as opposed to the destination focus. So we wanted to make sure it was not just about counting the numbers. And we wanted to recognise that it was based on a relationship, the attachment-based relationship concept. What I like to call is the alchemy of youth work. We wanted to try and work out how do you attribute what you're doing to the difference it makes to a young person. So our system was set up so that we tried to record as much as we can as we're going along, to try and relate everything to the actual transformation or changes that are happening. And we wanted it to be a warts and all system. We didn't want to just focus on success, particularly the client group we're working with. We wanted to recognise if there's been failure on our part, if there's been mistakes in, or if it's just not the right programme, how do we redirect them? How do we get the right support that's available for them? So if you can move on, please. What we were keen to do within the actual structure we created was have a triangle of reflection. So we wanted the young person, the school and the home to have an equal voice in it. We wanted them to try and realise that they can participate and have an influence in what the actual outcomes are, particularly with the home. A lot of the time these young people the home's disengaged from the school, usually through historical experiences, and that reflects the young person disengaging as well. So we wanted to make them inclusive as much as we can. Try and obviously build the bridges between the 3 points of the triangle. We wanted, what we did, we have a 3-point system. So we've got a database to start off with, like everybody has, who they are, what they are. And we have personal aspects of that as well. We record what their favourite hobbies are, what they do, who their friends are, so they feel involved in that. We then have an engagement tracker system where we record every meaningful engagement with the young person or their family or any other partner agency that's involved with them. So we can start to show over the journey how much involvement the youth work team have in the young person's life. And the third part we have is progressive indicators, which we're calling it, which if somebody had invented the skills indicators before I did this, you would have saved me months of work. I would have just cut and pasted, but I had to sit for months and come up with what actually does this mean. So let's see if you can move on to the next slide, please. what we ended up doing was we took, if it pops up, we took from the 2-year pilot the 8 most common outcomes that young people were presenting that they wanted to achieve, and we created a structure that had small bite-sized steps for them to progress on each one, as opposed to setting them a huge challenge of getting to a final destination point. And we didn't want a system that was standardised, that everybody had to achieve the same level to get to the same standard. We wanted it to be bespoke to each individual young person, so they can choose how far they want to go, where they want to start, and where their end point is. And we created this system that was a guide, as opposed to a structure you have to achieve stage 2 to get to this level. And the language we use here is a professional language, but we do change it for when we're talking to young people. So we wanted, the reason we did this, we wanted it to be recognised that any progression for them is a success relative to their needs. And we wanted them to be in control of what the pace was and how it changes. So I don't know how much time I had to actually start a stopwatch, but I didn't press it, usual. So the example we would use with this one is, what you would also see, if you look at the language, we deliberately didn't set it up that was about attainment and attendance. The school record those on their own, but we wanted the language to be about participation in the school, what the young person felt is a valuable participation, as opposed to just attending the school and improving their attendance, but not actually gaining anything from that attendance. And we tried to reflect that across the board. And what we also allow the staff to do, if they've got the competence to do it, is they can put any level of stages in between this. Whatever the young person feels is a progression, they can record that as progression. And then what that allows us to do is try and merge the two together, so we can start to reflect the type of engagement we've been involved with young people and the time frame of the progression, and correlate the two, so they actually show that this involvement with the youth work team has been influential in what their progression's actually been. So if we move on to the next slide, this is the kind of chart we present back to the school to show the impact that the engagement's actually had with young people. So the one at the back, I don't know, I'm pointing my pointer, I'm not actually realising it's probably not showing for you. The one at the back is how many young people selected that particular outcome. Again, similar to the skills indicator, we try and limit it to 2 or 3 at a time and take it in the journey the young person wants to take, and then we can move on to another indicator. We obviously don't do 7 or 8 at the one time, and they choose what their priority ones are. So over the course, 75 young people have chosen they want to change their participation in school or improve it. And you can see from the chart that 25 of the young people have maintained it, which for us is a success, because we're trying to prevent them going further down. So that's a success for us. And we add that up to the 36 that have recognised that they've actually improved. And then obviously in between there's the 12 that we feel has regressed, or circumstances have changed for them, so they've not been able to progress on it. So we can obviously try and look at different methods of engaging with them, different programmes, or if possible, a different agency that tries to support them. And that's reflected across the board. So over the time, these records are usually done every 3 weeks with a young person. And over a 6-month, a year-long period, we'll start to show the actual journey in a chart format. And although right at the start, I did say we didn't want to count numbers. Obviously, we do count numbers in some capacity. Everybody loves the numbers. So that's really us.
Brilliant, Brian. Thanks very much. That's it's really helpful, and I really like that idea of participation in school rather than just attendance, and how you're measuring that. So do we have any questions in the chat before we move on to James, or are there any questions?
Questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay, well, I think because of where we are time-wise as well, we should probably just move on to James. Then I'm going to share one slide, James, before I. James is working with us on a phase 2 of the collaborative inquiry in the West Partnership. And we, what came through really strongly through all of that great conversation between settings in phase 1 was a real interest in this whole process, I suppose, of evaluation between youth work and schools. And so in phase 2, we're actually piloting an approach based around the outcomes and skills framework, where the new partnerships that are taking part in the phase 2 have identified a core set of outcomes, skills, and the hard work was narrowing down the indicators that they believed were kind of core to all of the projects, and they're in the process of pulling together data on those at the moment. You'll notice, as well as the skills indicators, they've also looked at attendance, participation, and something around emotional regulation, as well as awards completed. And James has been doing a really interesting piece of work trying to help us gather and also visualize that data more effectively. So James, thanks. Can you share what you've been doing? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. That was a nice segue into my bit as well, Jill, because the outcomes framework is very relevant to what I'm going to show here. I'm just going to share my screen in a second. So I wanted to start by very quickly providing a bit of context to how we promoted individual partnerships work last year, and we had the series of these storyboard type things, and there was lots and lots of good work in here. We had quantitative feedback, qualitative feedback, and I think we have 8 of these, one for each of the partnerships that were involved at the time. But we were thinking a little bit about, was there a potential way of bringing together data that would be in one place, so you didn't have to have people going around 8 different PDFs. Would also have a mixture of individual partnership evaluations, but also the collective impact of a cohort that have gone through this process. So we thought about the idea of a dashboard. So I'll put a link to the dashboard in the chat in a moment, but essentially a dashboard is going to be a live, I wouldn't call it a document, but a live web page that will be updated every time that someone submits information to us via a Microsoft form. So there's a bit of technical things that has to be put in place behind the scenes here, but essentially, to people involved in the partnerships, they have to fill out a form, and then soon after that, their information will show on a dashboard. So I'm sure, having the experience that we've all had over the past few years, we've probably all got used to filling out Microsoft forms in the past few years. A lot of the information that Jill went through there with the outcomes, skills, and indicators is on here. And essentially, we just ask you to put down information that you'll already have collected into one place. Okay, so we've got questions like, what local authorities is your work taking place in? How many children have been involved in your work? Name of your youth work partnership, that sort of thing. And then we have these different questions about which outcomes you've used, which skills you've looked at in your evaluation, what indicators you've used. And then we have some sections here about how many children or young people you've actually gone through this process with, how many have demonstrated progress or enhancement in. So there is quite a lot of information here, but you won't have to fill out all of the questions because you'll only fill out the ones that are actually relevant to your partnership. I think as it stands, the suggested time for this is about 15 minutes. So it's 15 minutes of putting in information that you've already collected. Last year, we also had a qualitative section. We've talked a bit today about getting the voice of the children and young people, voice of practitioners, parents, carers, lots of different stakeholders that have benefited in some way. So we wanted to make sure that that information was going to be collected here as well. Now, from this, once you press submit, there's a series of technical things that happen in the background, and it will all get sent to a dashboard. So I'm going to put the link of the dashboard into the chat. I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'll put it in the chat because this is live. It's just got draft data in it at the minute. So if you click on the link that's in the chat, then you should be able to open that. And I'll share again and we can talk through it a little bit. So the first few pages on this dashboard will just be about the collective impact of all of the different partnerships. So because I've only filled this in with 2 drafts at the minute, we've got showing, 2 partnership submissions have been received. It adds up how many children and young people have been involved. So in the draft versions, it comes to 117. In this mock version, I've done one for East Wren and one for Renfrewshire. If I go to the next page, it tells us how many partnerships have used particular outcomes, how many have used particular skills in their evaluations. I think the next page is about different indicators that they've used. So if you can imagine that, if this dashboard was used over a number of years, you'd build up a massive picture of collective impact across the West Partnership as a aggregation of all the individual partnerships. We would then have, the numbers that are involved here for specific skills and indicators. So the first half of this is all very collective, but then we do have sections of the dashboard which are very individual partnership orientated. So here we have, for example, skills enhanced by partnership section, and we've got draft 1, draft 2. This is just a little slicer. So again, if you can imagine, if we had 10 submissions from 10 different partnerships, each partnership would show here. And as you toggled through them, it would change all of the data on a dashboard. We've got this section here, which talks about the number of children and young people that have been involved in the work. And then it automatically calculates the percentage of those that were evaluated along the lines of confidence, how many demonstrated progress, in this case 74%. The ones that are blank are simply those that weren't used in this particular draft version. So we've got that for skills, and we've got a similar page for indicators. So again, we can toggle through and it will present, in this instance, the different ICANN statements and what percentage demonstrated progress in those indicators. And finally, we've also got a separate page about readiness to learn indicators, so attendance in school, attendance in youth work, the different things that Jill has already presented today, and again with a slicer that allows us to move between them. And then finally, we've got this page here that allows us to present qualitative feedback in one place. So we've got in this box feedback from children and young people, here parents and carers, feedback from the school, so that's different practitioners involved, feedback from the youth work practitioner. So it really builds up a variety of viewpoints on what's happened there and what the impact has been. So that's what we've done so far. And as you can see, there's only draft data that has been used in that process, but we think it's a way of having lots of information in one place. It doesn't involve people having to store 10, 15 PDFs on a computer.
Thanks very much, James. It's really interesting, and we've got 5 partnerships who are in the process of planning to input to that before the end of this school session. So we'll be able to kind of take a proper look at that over the summer, and hopefully come back with more learning from that in the next school year. So we're almost through our hour. Are there questions from people that have joined about any of what you've heard this afternoon?
Jill, do you mind, since there's silence here, do you mind if I just inform people of something, just in case anybody wants to, whether they want to, I don't know, find out more about what we do? As I said to yourself, somehow I've been roped into a promise presentation on Eventbrite. So if anybody wants, the link's there, if anybody wants to sign up, they can come and hear me talk more rubbish for a longer time.
That's great, Brian, because I think there's a lot of detail to what you do that you've not had an opportunity to share, as is true of Barrhead. We only gave them 7 minutes each or something, so it's just a wee whistle stop tour. Well, if there are no questions, I think that's a wrap, Kat.
It's a wrap until I have one plea for those of you who are here as observers. Hold on, contest search. Yep. Could you fill out the evaluation? It will take you about 2 minutes, but it would be really good to hear your thoughts. The link is in the chat. Would really like to hear what you think about the session and how it's helped you. If it's helped you, I'm sure it has. It helps us to form new sessions as well, so we would really appreciate your input. Yep, I think that is a wrap. Other than that, so can I just say a huge thank you to all of our presenters today. It's not just the work that's gone into the presenting for today. However, you know, there's been a whole year's worth of work in terms of the inquiry last year, and then they have been doing some other work as well, sharing with senior partners, and this was our next step to bring it to practitioners. So thank you very much to all of you for presenting today, and thank you to those who have come along to hear the message. There is a final session on the 7th of June, am I right? Got that right? Yeah. So we are looking forward to seeing you then, and I'll send out the link to the recording too. Okay. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.